Hello, welcome to this course, ComfyUI for 3D artists. And I'm a 3D artist myself. My name is Ante Antonitsky. I've been doing 3D graphics for almost 15, 20 years now, as long as I remember. And now I'm looking how to expand my creativity, how to expand my possibilities using AI in a more controllable fashion with 3D. I've done a course using Stable Diffusion and Web UI. This is a bit more easier approach, so if you want to check it out, I have it on my YouTube channel. But now I want to go deeper into ComfyUI. ComfyUI gives an insane amount of possibilities. It's a very advanced user interface with AI. It's more advanced than what you can find for paid versions online, better than, I don't know, Midjourney or Magnific. It doesn't always give a better quality, but you can run it locally, and it can do very, very specific things that you can never ask those web tools to do. And it's also free. We are not going to do any 3D work in this tutorial. We're just starting to install the UI, get it all ready, and doing our first image generations. In the future videos, I will talk a lot more about how we can combine 3D with ComfyUI. To keep it true to the 3D spirit, our first generations are Timecodes. Let's go get started. We need to download Python and install it. I will go with Python 3.11.5 version at python.org. This is a more compatible version with ComfyUI. If you download a brand new version from 2024, 2025, it might cause some compatibility issues, or it might not. You don't know for sure. So I will go into the Python 3.11, and we have here at the bottom the files to use. We have one for Mac, and we also have a bunch for Windows. I will go with this installer. Just click on that to download. I have the file downloaded. Double click on that, and you just go through the basic steps in install it. I already have it installed, and I don't need to do it, but it's very easy. To install ComfyUI, we need to go to GitHub, and all the links are in the description. And here we have the collection of files that ComfyUI is using, and also documentation plus some useful things like shortcuts. So this is actually very, very useful to come back later and memorize the shortcuts. And to install ComfyUI, we can make it in a very easy way. We can install a portable version for Windows. If you're not on Windows, then the installation guide for other system is down below. Meanwhile, go back to Windows, direct link to download, and it will start to download the ComfyUI zip. I have ComfyUI downloaded, and I will right click and unzip it here. Go inside the folder and click on run NVIDIA GPU.bad, or if you have a very bad GPU, you'll run CPU one. So let me just double click on that, and it will take a while to open it in the first time. It will go and download certain modules it needs ComfyUI to run. So you can give it up to like 5-10 minutes to do all that stuff. It will open a browser window. In my case, it's Chrome, and it should give you this first kind of generation setup. If it doesn't give you a workflow like that, a node system like this, we need to go into workflow, browse templates, and look just for image generation, the most basic template to start with. If I go click here on Q, it will tell me that we don't have any models yet to show us this error. I recommend to go with Stable Diffusion model 1.5, and the link will be in the description. I go to Hugging Face and find this model. I need to switch to files and versions, and then pick the model that I want to download. In this case, it will be 1.5 pruned safe tensors. Safe tensors means that it is a model that's been tested for viruses, while CKPT is like a raw model. It can have malicious code. In this case, I wouldn't suspect it has any malicious code, but when we will go out and download models from other places like Civitai, then it can become a problem. I've downloaded the Stable Diffusion model, then I need to go and place it in the correct folder. So I'll go inside ComfyUI and go to Models, and I'll go to Checkpoints. This is where we want to put our model. I think for a beginner, there is a lot of confusion about the models because we have Stable Diffusion 3.5 now, we have 2.1, we have Flux, We have SDXL, and we have 1.5. Basically, we want to go with 1.5 because now it's been well tried, and there are a lot of custom nodes and plugins and workflows that work with 1.5. Because the power of ComfyUI is that you can just plug and play. You can find somebody's workflow online and bring it in, drag and drop into ComfyUI, and it will start to work. But it will need often a 1.5 model or SDXL, depending on the workflow, and less so 3.5 or Flux. So keep it to Stable Diffusion 1.5, and also a big advantage of 1.5 is it's quite quick. It's quicker than 3.5, and if you're a beginner and you want to run a lot of iterations, and the quality doesn't matter that much at this stage really, you just need to get used to this workflow. In that case, 1.5 is also quite great. And Stable Diffusion 1.5 itself is what's called a base model. So then people do fine-tuned models with extra images, extra data sets, and you can get a much better result than default Stable Diffusion model. In fact, I hardly used Stable Diffusion regular model. I do have it downloaded, and sometimes I play with that, but more often than not, I use, say, Epic Photogasm, or just download some other fine-tuned models from Civitai and just try them out. We can find a lot more models on civitai.com. There are a bunch of fine-tuned models starting from SDXL, Stable Diffusion, Flux, and other stuff I've never heard about. You can just type in the prompt what kind of stuff you want, like say anime, stylized, classic paint, Rembrandt, basically anything. In our case, I just want to go for a good photorealistic model, and I will go for Epic Photogasm. So what we're looking here for is the base model. So we can see the Stable Diffusion 1.5, and you can check other information and comments here. Otherwise, just click on download and you'll get it on the computer. And we need to place that model in the same folder, ComfyUI Models Checkpoints. I'm back now at ComfyUI. I will go edit and say refresh node definitions. And that will find the models I've put into the folder. Sometimes you have to restart the ComfyUI completely for bigger changes, but in this case, just to update the files, update the node, it gives me the list. So in this case, I just have two models, the original Stable Diffusion and Epic Photogasm. And I will just go with original Stable Diffusion and click on Q. I like to have my command line open because this is showing any mistakes or issues or how long it takes to generate an image. And there we go. We got our first image with the prompt that was just original prompt from this workflow. We didn't change anything here yet. And let me say a few things about the UI. It's very, very simple. It has very few functionalities. We have our saving buttons. We can export it. We can undo, redo. We can refresh it. We can find help in the documentation. There is a node library that can allow us to search through it. There is a model library for checkpoints, for models, for Stable Diffusion stuff, and the workflow files that I have none here because it's a brand new project. And if I click here once again, it will disappear that column. I want to start with a blank page, so I will go workflow new, and I can just close that tab that I had. Let's double click in the empty canvas, and I'm looking for empty latent image. I'll just type in the name and it will pop. We have our resolution here and the batch size. The batch size is the amount of images you want to produce in one batch. You can also do it here in the queue. We can just type it in right there. So what is an empty latent image? This is our blank canvas to create new images. It exists in a latent space, and obviously you want to ask what is a latent space. This is our kind of like a noisy environment, decompressed or specifically encoded for us to work with it. And I'm not a mathematician, so I'm just getting the basic idea that we have a latent array, which they call tensor, a multidimensional array of numbers. And we can manipulate that latent space by feeding it information. We can feed it with a text prompt. We can feed it with another image, a style guide, another noise. We can introduce just a noise pattern to create a new image as the output. Our latent image will need some input. So I will double click in the empty space and look for the checkpoints. Load checkpoint, essentially meaning the same as load a model. It already has a preloaded Epic Photogasm, and I want to click there and swap it to 1.5 model. This node has three outputs: model, clip, and VAE. The model output is telling ComfyUI which model we are using throughout the process. The clip is our parameters that we can use to modify the image, such as text prompt. The VAE is a bit more complex concept. It is a variational autoencoder. It takes an image and puts it into a latent space, encodes it into it, and then it will decode it from the latent space. There are multiple VAE models available, and you can change them and apply different ones to your process to get a different output. Some models do come with VAE already with them, so you don't have to do anything. Sometimes, if you want to be more creative, you can bring your own VAE. If I drag from one of those outputs and let it go, it will give me options which nodes to connect. I will go with clip text encode. This is our basic prompt. Usually we will be working with two prompts, one which is positive for everything that we want to see in the image, and one which is negative for the stuff we don't want to see in the image. So I'll Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V to copy and paste this node, and I will drag it and connect it here. If I go and double click at the top, I can rename this and I can call it positive, and double click at the bottom, I'll call it negative. But where do these all nodes go? Where do they converge? So if I drag from the model output and let it go, I can pick this case sampler. This is our solving node, and I can go and pick our clip conditioning at positive and clip at negative, connect it here, and then go connect the latent image as well. So now we have fully workable and connected case sampler node. Case sampler has a bunch of nodes. We start with seed. We can have a fixed seed for the same image to generate, or we can have a randomized seed numbers, so every new generation will be different. So if I click here on randomize, you can see here we have fixed just for one number. Increment for a seed will go incremental numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can always kind of track back your changes. And just randomize, it will give you a big randomized number, so every new generation is new. Then we have steps. On a very basic conditioning, the more steps you have, the higher quality you get, and the less steps you have, the lower quality you can get. And if you experiment with that and you just put it to very low quality, like 2 steps, it will look pretty ugly. If you put it to like 80, you will get a finer image, but it will take a lot more time depending on the hardware you get. And also certain models, they work better with certain amount of steps, so you sometimes have to read through documentation. Next we have CFG. It's a classify free guidance scale. It doesn't say much, but basically what you have to understand that the lower value on CFG means more freedom to case sampler, for model to create images. If you go with the values down to like 1 or 2, we can just create noise like blank image. If we go with the higher values like 12, 15, 20, it will try to adhere to the prompt that you put in a lot more, and it can create glitches as well. So 8 steps by standard is pretty nice. It can be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's fun to experiment, and I definitely recommend to play with the values. Sampler is an algorithm that's responsible for creation of the image. Some samplers are better for stylized outputs, some are better for photoreal outputs, some are slower, some are faster. In this case, I will go for DPM 2 because it's better for photoreal images. Now let's talk about Scheduler. Scheduler determines the pattern of noise added to the image during the early stage of sampling, and it uses different models, mathematical models. In our case, we will be using Keras because it's better for photorealistic models. The last parameter we have is denoise. It is a parameter responsible for how much we can go away from our latent image. However, our latent image right now is empty and we are generating our image using the prompt. So this denoise doesn't have any effect in this particular workflow. The final node is VAE Decode. And now we are decoding this latent image, essentially an array of numbers, into a real image. So I will drag the VAE from our checkpoint straight towards this decode node and then create an image node, save image, connect it, and I can try to run this. Well, I don't have any input yet, so let's put a teapot into it and let's just run this and see what's going on. And you can see it highlights in green which current node is running. And there we go, we got a teapot. So the teapot I got wasn't that nice. So I went back to our text prompts and I changed the prompt. I played around with settings and with the wording, like white background, isolated, centered. And also it was sometimes creating some anime stylized stuff. So I just put it in a negative prompt. I don't want any anime or stylized things. And also I did change the model from Stable Diffusion 1.5 to Epic Photogasm. I also was getting better quality images in the end. Now, since I'm pretty happy with the results I'm getting from my prompting, I want to go and increase resolution. So I will go to at 1024 to 1024, 1K by 1K, and it will run much slower. I'll press Q, and I can take a look at how it's running in my command line. And let's just fast forward. So you can see the image is 4 times bigger in the end by resolution. And it took 4 times longer to calculate, from 5 to 23 seconds. We got a few of these teapots, which is a bit funny. I wanted just a single one. And I can run another creation and run again. Actually, what I'll do, I'll go and run a queue with these 4 of them and go make some tea. This is the collection of my prompts. You can see here the stylized one, which I didn't like, some funny one from Stable Diffusion, so the swap to Epic Photogasm, then kind of double teapots, and then we're getting something nice here, some levitation. I don't know why that's happening. Now I said like white background, I started to create also white teapot. I can also specifically say make it like black teapot on white background and would change it. However, just like whatever, let's carry on. Then it was creating all these double teapots at higher resolution. So I said a single teapot in the prompt and I started to create a single teapot, and it does glitch out. And that save image node saves it to ComfyUI output, so you can then locate it inside your ComfyUI folder in the output. This is a very basic text-to-image setup. So we are scratching the surface here and getting comfortable with the interface and doing generations. I really recommend to build up some experience prompting and changing values and seeing what you get in the outcome, because that's quite important. Then you get this kind of innate feel of the software. And in the next videos, I will go and expand on more technical details and on more stuff that we need to add to ComfyUI to make it more usable and more productive. I thank you for watching. Give me a like or subscribe, and see you in the next video.